So, essentially, what this is, first, basically, I did the first part of this for about 45 minutes and did it through YouTube and the new streaming thing. I didn't realize there was a go live button that you also have to click in YouTube, which is very irritating. So it didn't save any of it. Also hasn't saved my last two SAG sessions, which is extremely annoying. Ooh, spelling mistake. And so basically, I said, fuck it, we'll do it on Twitch instead from now on, because that works as it should, and we can just export it to YouTube afterwards very easily, hopefully. So this is kind of a test run of that. It's only going to be like half an hour or something. But basically, what this is I wanted to do another Don Hollow playtest. I kind of wanted to just do it on my own, kind of feel my way through it. I also have been super inspired by games like Ironsworn, these like solo RPG games that have been getting kind of a lot of attention, getting really big recently. And so figured kind of the narrative style of Don Hollow would lend itself really well to that. So I kind of just wanted to give it a go, see how that works, see how I like to do it, and kind of see, really how this ends up working out. The first kind of session of this made our character, which I'll talk through in a sec. And we started off the story and did some, did a combat and just kind of felt it out, gave it a bit of a test. I am doing this very narratively and writing quite a lot. Obviously, if you're playing this by yourself, you can choose how you want to do it. I like that. I like having the log. I like having it almost be like a novel kind of thing, like a very cinematic experience. But you could just play it like a board game and kind of write like 2 or 3 lines for everything that happens and just kind of run through killing monsters and having fun. It's up to you. This is how I'm doing it. It's kind of, I imagine, like watching paint dry, just because it's me sort of typing out a lot of stuff. But this is more to test it, essentially. So we'll see how this goes. Make sure the export to YouTube and everything goes okay. And yeah, I think that's good. So our character, let's talk through that quickly. Alright, so the basically what I decided on for this was I wanted to play someone from Kairunya, the kind of very northern, more mystical place where magic isn't as frowned on and that sort of thing. So we kind of built this character. It's called Pilgrimage, or the Pilgrimage Saga, because he is going to be a pilgrim, and he's on a pilgrimage down south to Entia, which has this sort of very important site of like the first landing of the NC people in Don Hollow. So I'll quickly kind of read through and recap what happened that wasn't saved, and then from there we can kind of go on, maybe do a couple more social things, maybe another combat, we'll see. That might be good just to get one of those kind of saved early on. So we'll probably only go for like half an hour, maybe 40 minutes, see how I'm feeling. I had a blast doing the first bit though. It's a lot of fun for me anyway. And so I encourage anyone to kind of do the same thing. So, our character, Brega Ofnirson. Obviously he's from Kairunya. He's a pilgrim. Gave him the mystical and healing traits. Mystical because he's from that place. He's got these, he's got a bit of a deeper understanding of magic and magical lore than the average, the average Dun. And healing just because, he's lived a tough life. He's a bit of a hunter, and so he's kind of taught himself a lot of healing and that sort of thing. So he kind of is able to mend his wounds a little bit on the fly if he needs to. His goal is travel further from home than you ever have. It's just one of the standard ones, but it's a good way to sort of, show that his goal really is to travel and to discover the world and leave his sort of little small community behind, kind of the Luke Skywalker thing. He's got his path ability there. For the other kind of big thing about him is he has a horse called Myrna, who I didn't make him pay for it when I was creating the character. I figured because he's on his own, his parents maybe gave him the horse, and so that's kind of his companion on this journey. And so it also gives him a bit of extra space to carry stuff, which is why you see those kind of lighter highlighted sections. That's essentially his horse's inventory as well. Although, like the shield, for example, is probably on the horse. So I should actually probably change that, to be honest. But, we'll see. He's got a backpack, which I suppose I should note down. And yeah, so he's got a longbow, quiver and 20 arrows, which is now 19, as you'll find out why. Some camping supplies, a battle axe and a shield as his sort of backup. He's got a sacrificial blade, courtesy of his Kyrunian heritage. 3 weeks rations, raven skull, feather totem, and rune pendant, which are also Kyrunian things. A cloak, some light armor, a healing kit, a water skin, the broken arrow, which again we'll come to, backpack, and 22 silver in his pocket. So he's doing quite well. So we'll read through chapter 1 quickly, or so far. It's really not very long. And then we'll keep going. So, chapter 1, I guess. It's raining already. First line. It is raining in Karunya. The morning is broken by thunder and flashes of lightning. Brega Ofnirson sits astride his horse, Myrna, a beautiful Pretzvals, which is a breed of horse, her grey hair making her almost invisible in the sodden conditions. As they slowly walk from Karunya, Brega takes one last look over his shoulder at the town in which he had spent his life up until this moment, and the parents who raised him, watching his back as he goes. Brega is of Anne, I think that's supposed to be. I wrote this very quickly. Brega is of an average height and build, if a little skinny. He has the typical Kyrunian red hair and stubble. He's in his early 20s, and though he has spent much of his life hunting in the wilderness around Karunya, he's never truly left home before. He and Myrna travel through the day and come to camp in a small pass in the hills. Despite the rain, he manages to get a fire going and begins to cook off some of his rations, consisting of some dried elk, cooked in butter to give it some semblance of a proper meal. As he's sitting there, he hears a loud, deep croaking coming from behind him. Immediately, he recognizes that sound and leaps to his feet, grabbing his bow and slinging his quiver over his shoulder. He backs up towards Myrna, hoping to protect her, as he squints into the downpour, looking for the source of the sound. From the bushes behind his campsite, a ball of greenish spittle comes hurtling towards him, like some kind of missile. It strikes his bare neck, and he can feel the spittle burning his skin, turning it red and blotchy with irritation. From behind the bush springs a rayrog, a small toad-like creature with spindly legs and a pointed face. Its skin is a muddy brown colour, and it has small protrusions covering its body, such that it looks to have been covered in pebbles. So that actual attack there almost did half his health. So Brega starts this combat on 3 hit points out of 6, and the Rayrog starts at full health. So Brega's at a bit of a disadvantage. But he won the initiative and fires his first arrow. He rolls a 9, which succeeds and deals 4 damage. And the Rayrog has no armor, so that it just takes that full damage. So the Rayrog then leaps forward and bites at Brega's ankles, but it misses. Brega retreats, and the Rayrog spits saliva at him. But it doesn't do... Alright, because the damage to that has a -2, it doesn't do enough, and Braga succeeds his constitution test to avoid being poisoned. Braga fires another arrow, aiming for the head, and kills the creature. Braga gasps in pain and pulls off his armor, splashing his face and neck with some water from his skin. He spends some time washing his armor before going to retrieve his arrows. He manages to retrieve one arrow intact, but the other is broken against the pebbled skin of the railrock. He takes the broken arrow nonetheless, hoping to fix it later. He skins and cooks the railrock over the fire. Having a fresh, warm meal makes the horrible pain almost worth it. I don't know why that comma's there. He strokes and cleans off Myrna and says, "Good girl, thanks for not running off on me." He sleeps off the battle that night and awakes feeling healthy, if a little itchy, and the night passed without incident. So that's where we are, and we'll just keep going with this so far. And I think, like, it's very annoying that the first bit was missed, but it was kind of I suppose it's good in a way, because now I sort of know how I want to present this. It'll make it a bit easier. So I think from here, Braga's continuing his journey south. He'd be heading west at this point, kind of parallel to the mountains, and then is going to be able to turn south at the pass between them. So we'll make a note of that. So Braga heads west. The Great Mountains, which I believe have a name, which I will find momentarily. Here it is. So the mountains, these ones actually don't have a name yet, though they border the Vakten. The Great Mountains to the south, blocking his passage for now. Oh, I almost forgot our sound effects. Let's get those going again. Here we go. Oh, that's loud. There we go. All sorted. So, Braga. I imagine he ate the entire railrock, so he's kind of done with that for now. But he's going to continue on this path, heading for the pass. So, his way to the small pass that will allow him passage southward. And that's kind of heading towards Straslich. The largest northern city. I don't know what I can't put that. So, I think at this point, he should. Meet a temporary traveling companion, someone to, I suppose, just someone to talk to and like let us kind of learn a little bit more about him, and sort of someone to just give him something else to do. He travels for another full day. And Myrna and seems to enjoy the I don't want to say more interesting, but the I've kind of forgotten the word of how I want to say it. Change in scenery, we'll say. That night, as he is looking for a place to camp, he comes across, or he spots the glow of a fire coming from a small outcropping of rock at the foot of the mountains. That way he can kind of sneak up on them and stuff. So he's gonna kind of slide off Myrna, tie her off somewhere, and try to sneak up on whoever is here. So that's gonna be a dex. Oof, that is almost the worst possible roll. He rolled a 17. So actually, because that's so bad, let's do this. As he is moving across, we've got an extra capital, across the scree, I think that's how you spell scree, it gives way beneath him, and he slips, landing badly on his ankle and crying out. Oh, I just realised I didn't sort of put why he's saying that. He slips on Myrna's back and ties her off to a tree limb, hoping to sneak his way towards the camp and ensure and catch a glimpse of whoever is enjoying the fire. Basically trying to make sure it's not some horrible bloodthirsty elf or something. At the sound, he hears two voices whispering, and watches as a pair of figures stand and begin making their way towards him. We'll say axes in hand. So let's roll for these figures. Excuse me. So first, we'll give a quick roll to kind of see the character types. So one is a sort of warrior type. Actually, they both are. So there's two warriors. I will say one male, one female. And we'll say one is going to be called Ada, and the other is going to be called I like that, Hezekiel. So Ada and Hezekiel. I'm just going to make a note of that before I put it in the writing. Double X axes. As they approach, Braga gets a better look at them. Both are tall, and I think they're going to be NC. And clearly NC people from the south. They carry axes. We've already said that. The male is wearing a heavy fur cloak, belted with leather, and hefting an enormous shield in his off hand. His hair is brown but going grey, and his beard plays host to several iron and silver trinkets. The woman is also tall, powerfully built, and imposing. She has blonde hair, Vikings. Yeah. And her axe is very large, designed to be wielded by with both hands. We'll do that. So they would kind of come up and say, I guess we'll give them a roll to see how kind of nervous or mistrusting they are of him. Okay, so that's a pretty bad roll. So they're going to be quite sort of not naive, but they're going to be less scared of him, I guess. And basically that means that's good for him. So when they spot him lying in the scree and clutching his ankle, they visibly relax, immediately spotting him as identifying him as a Kyrunian. Hello, lad. Yeah, he's the typical big bear kind of guy. So I think Braga, seeing that they're kind of being kinder towards him, is going to act the same. Yeah. So he's kind of this pained. Yeah, he's sort of breathing through the pain. Yeah. Did my ankle though, and I've only been traveling a couple days. The man grunts, helping Braga to his feet, who goes Braga goes slightly green at the pain in his ankle, but is able to walk with assistance. My horse, he murmurs, pointing behind him at where Myrna is tied. The woman carefully picks her way across to untie Myrna, while Braga is led to the small camp. And I think these guys are going to be they're slightly older than him. They're a bit more kind of well versed, a bit more seasoned. They'll maybe take an interest in him. give him a hand, that sort of thing. But I think for now, that's where we're going to call it. I think that's sort of a good indication, good stopping point. So we'll pick this up at some point in the future, don't you worry.